Don Lemon said, I'm leaving X. There's no good discussions to be had here.
I have loved connecting with all of you on Twitter and then on X for all of these years. But it's time for me to leave the platform.
You don't like criticism. If you want to get into this game, the online game's different. In the online game, you get judged by who you fucking actually are, dude. It's not about your producers and your teleprompter, and you're on your own. And if people think you're stupid, you're going to hear it. And it might be because you're stupid.
Pal Don has resurfaced or is about to resurface. And I realize that the magnanimous move is to say, good for Don. He got canceled off of CNN and now he's reinventing himself on Twitter. Well, that's not what I say. I think he's disgusting. He hates America. He hates Republicans. And I'm not looking forward to his voice reemerging other than to mock it, which I 100% plan to do.
The reputation of Don Lemon was simply placed in a blender and pureed by Rogan and Megyn Kelly. Like old cue cards, they tore apart Lemon's media heritage with Megyn's razor-sharp accuracy and Rogan's raw, unfiltered condemnation, just the harsh reality and scathing wit, without any pity or nonsense. If you thought Lemon's decline was dramatic, you won't believe how these two use brutal humor and surgical strikes to ruin his career. It's a reckoning, not just a roast.
Great was watching him realize in real time how stupid Don Lemon is.
What do you mean by woke mind virus?
Woke mind virus is when you stop caring about people's skills and their integrity, and you start focusing instead on gender and race and other things that are different from that.
This whole idea about DEI, if you go woke or whatever, you go broke, that's not necessarily true.
Don, choose your question carefully. There's 5 minutes left.
It is part of a pattern, and it ties in with the allegations that have been made against him recently that he was screaming at his co-host Caitlin Collins because she had the temerity to interrupt him, and he was annoyed. It's hard to be demoted from the primetime solo anchor to the morning show co-anchor, having to share your set with these annoying women. Thank God they're in their prime. At least he wasn't subjected to that indignity.
When it came to Don Lemon, Joe Rogan didn't exactly enter the arena with a tiptoe. One could argue that the microphone was the gentle part if Rogan held a flamethrower in one hand and a microphone in the other. With that familiar mixture of interest, contempt, and frustration, he plunged right in. Like a man in a tuxedo inspecting a cockroach. You could almost hear his mind racing as he attempted to figure out how Don Lemon had managed to survive, and even flourish in the media for such a long time. It was like to witnessing a man attempt to decipher hieroglyphics etched on a disco ball.
Interviewer Don Lemon interviews some dude on the street.
No.
The guy is telling Don Lemon, like, I don't trust all these sources you're saying. This is so
Who is the real president-elect, you think?
Donald Trump.
Democratic lawmakers in Washington are calling Elon Musk President Musk now.
What's? Wait a second. No one said that.
Google right now, President Musk, and see what comes up.
No. But that's already a loaded question, you realize.
Give me the sources.
Axios, Business Insider.
Oh.
We don't trust
Keep
any
going,
of these. The
keep
common
going,
man doesn't
keep
trust
going,
any of this.
keep going.
ABC News,
Oh,
Washington
keep
Post.
going.
I don't trust any of these. We're the common man. We don't trust any of these. Independent news, we are the ones that own the news now. People trust me. They don't trust MSNBC.
Dude, that is...
Don Lemon wasn't only a sign of the issue with traditional media. According to Rogan, in the Museum of Manufactured Outrage, he had his own display and was a complete case study. Lemon wasn't some renegade operator enmeshed in the tangle of contemporary journalism. Joe made plain, no, Don represented the pandemonium to Joe, the human equivalent of a smug teleprompter. He sipped expensive cappuccino, uttering manufactured outrage while seeming as though it came from a deep intellectual place.
And Don Lemon comes out with a post on X saying, it starts as follows. I've heard you, and today I'm back, bigger, bolder, freer. I've heard you, like the masses are clamoring. Where's Don? Right, we need.
They've been crying out for Don.
Come.
Lemon's ability to appear superior despite his lack of knowledge left Joe speechless. It was similar to witnessing a man in a captain's hat guide a boat straight into a rock and then accuse the water of being motionless. Joe considered it a rare gift that Lemon possessed, the capacity to alienate people on both sides of the aisle. Pulling that off consistently required a genuine commitment to misinterpreting everyone.
That's what he
What
was.
Elon said was so apt. He said Don Lemon was doing CNN off CNN.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You're on the internet. Have a conversation with a dude. Don't just berate him with questions.
Yeah.
Allow
You're
him
gonna get me? Let's
to
talk.
express himself.
Let's talk.
And I'm
Like,
like, gotcha.
Have you thought about the difference between free speech and hate speech? And like, where is the line? Like, do you think about the line? Do you think it's like more important that people decide what the
There was the fall after that. Lemon was ejected from his esteemed position with the grace of a drunken giraffe on roller skates, thanks to the spectacular primetime collapse. Joe handled it like a cosmic correction, as though the media universe had finally hit C+Alt+delete after realizing it had a virus. Carefully analyzing the scenario, he noted how Don's smugness had become a parody of itself.
I have a little reminder for you of who Don Lemon is and why we can't stand him. Here you go.
Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. He knows that this is, an administration defined by ignorance of the world.
The people who aided and abetted Trump are stupid, but lived in several red states. There are a lot of friends who I had to really get.
Don Lemon's fall, according to Rogan, was unavoidable, much like gravity. Reality pulled Lemon back down like a bowling ball that had been dropped. The instant he rejected reason, Joe used surgical precision to expose Lemon's contradictions, contempt, and ignorance in his takedown, which was quiet but incisive. Lemon was that child who, in an attempt to sound intelligent, read aloud from the dictionary but consistently mispronounced the silent letters. Rogan was actually annoyed by the presumption that viewers were too stupid to notice, not just by the haughtiness. Joe couldn't understand how Lemon made a living by talking down to people he never sought to understand, as he loves open communication. Respect was the focus of his criticism, not ratings. Rogan also thought it was incredibly poetic when Lemon's identity politics failed, like a human bingo card that would destroy itself if Shakespeare had written in sarcasm and memes.
Alternative.
when Don Lemon goes on
saw that
with
lie?
Sanjay
Yeah.
Gupta and says,
Actually, it really is veterinary medicine. It really
No,
is
but that's not what
deworming
this
horses.
was the lie. He goes, it's not a lie to say it's also used as horse medicine. He goes,
that's not what you said.
yeah, that's not what you said. You didn't say
Yeah.
this drug, which also is used for horses. Of what relevance is that?
It doesn't have any relevance. Exactly what we're talking about with penicillin and with like a gigantic number of medicines that also have veterinary applications. But by doing that, you just prove my point.
Next was the media rehabilitation tour of Don Lemon. Like a boy band member going solo after being expelled for lip syncing, Rogan made fun of it as a depressing rebrand. Desperate actions in a world that has already moved on include a new podcast and social pivots. Joe compared it to attempting to light a fire in a hurricane with soggy matches. Depressing, a little humorous, and doomed. Megyn Kelly did not follow the same strategy. She dissected, not mocked. She described Lemon's career with the accuracy of a forensic expert in a courtroom, revealing layers of narcissism and the odor of out-of-date relevancy. She documented how he traded truth for trends, going from journalist to ideological puppet. Megyn believed that Lemon exemplified all that was wrong with corporate journalism, where virtue signaling takes the place of substance and identity triumphs over quality.
Stop demonizing people and realize the biggest terror threat in this country is white men.
Your geography, knowing other countries, sipping your latte.
All those lines on the map.
Only the elites know where Ukraine
I
is.
think we have to stop coddling people when it comes to this and the vaccine, saying, oh, you can't shame them. You can't call them stupid. You can't call them silly. Yes, they are. The people who are not getting vaccines, who are believing the lies on the internet instead of science, it's time to start shaming them. What else? Or leave them behind.
It struck Megyn as deliciously ironic that Don Lemon, who positioned himself the enlightened compass of television news, became confused the once he had to share airtime, particularly with female coworkers. His ego was unable to accept equality. Irony like that required exposure rather than a punchline. His condescension also delighted her, as she compared it to someone who recently found TED Talks and now quotes them like a Bible. It appeared that Lemon had forgotten that television is about connecting, not lecturing. Every time he talked, it sounded more like a lecture from a wannabe Moses with a GPS focused on Starbucks than it did like news, and the hypocrisy difficult to miss. Lemon, who advocated for progressive ideals, frequently displayed blatant contempt for anyone who didn't fit his limited definition of intelligence or wokeness. He said a lot of things that made people doubt evolution. Megyn said, amused for someone so desperate to seem intelligent.
Medicines that also have veterinary applications. But by doing that, you just prove my point. They don't even understand what they just did. You think no one's, like, it's going to end with you? See, because it used to be that way. They would say something and no one would have recourse.
Do you know what this is?
But when you're saying something, and then the person you're saying it about has literally 10 times the audience you do. You dumb motherfucker. Do you know what you did? You just proved my point.
With a smile that suggested he believed teaching us was a public duty, Don Lemon was not only wrong, but wrong with confidence and persistence. Megyn remained unfazed by his notorious moments. She combed through the records, revealing each conceited speech and arrogant conversation, and painted a vivid picture. Lemon wasn't an anomaly. Rather, he was the result of years spent in a mirror-lined echo chamber. She also criticized the lackluster reaction from the media to his departure. There were no reflections or reckonings, only the quiet shuffling of deck chairs. Lemon lost his job because he was obnoxious, conceited, and out of touch, not because he was brave. It wasn't a horrible fall, long late, in fact.
Jan, I mean, bullshit. He's not, in fact, hold on, stand by. I got it on my...
Sure, Jan.
He's got more. Yes.
He's shown us who he is.
The fact that someone could be so out of touch while working in a field that is based on reporting reality captivated Rogan and Kelly. Not only did Lemon miss the mark, but he also shifted it and chastised others for failing to hit it. From their different platforms, Joe and Megyn revealed that reality, not a single error caused Lemon to fail. Rather, he never had a genuine connection to the world he professed to describe. Rogan observed that audiences no longer desired lectures, but rather interactions, and that they had outgrown someone like him. Don also never learned to pay attention. Megyn, who was surgically composed, diagnosed his downfall rather than celebrating it. She didn't think Lemon was cancelled. Rather, she saw him as a holdover from a time when sarcasm was mistaken for wisdom. Joe and Megyn worked together to pull off a takedown, with Megyn's incisive analysis and Rogan's everyman riff. What about Don, an off-key kazoo that continues to blare and wonder why no one is paying attention?
Now, I do not know what the motivation for demonizing this particular medication is. Again, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, but I would imagine some of it has to do with money. The reason being is that it is a generic drug now. The patent has run out, so anybody can make it, and it's worth like 30 cents a dose. Now, Merck has its own antiviral that's supposed to do the same thing that they claim ivermectin does, as does Pfizer. They're both about to release it. I don't know if that's why the FDA is making snarky tweets about it being veterinary medicine. But I do know that it was used for humans for fucking years before they ever started using it for animals. And I also do know that...
However, this was more than just Lemon. It was about what he stood for. He was the unavoidable result of a system that penalizes curiosity and favors echo chambers. According to Rogan, he served as a warning to Megyn about people who mistakenly believe that being seen equates to being credible. Their roasting went beyond just personal attacks. They were autopsies from a time when volume was valued more than information and appearance over intelligence. Lemon also found himself slipping as the media landscape changed. Podcasts took over primetime, and affectation was supplanted by genuineness. Lost in a sea of narratives he couldn't control, content he couldn't control, and people who ultimately had the ability to switch channel, there was no reason for Megyn and Joe to yell. When you believe your own press releases, this is what happens, they remarked, pointing to the debris. When you stop evolving because you believe you've already arrived, and you confuse airtime for impact, they didn't laugh meanly. The act was purify.
You want to be in political office, you might need to do a competency test. And here was Don Lemon reacting to that on CNN.
This whole talk about age makes me uncomfortable. I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to.
Similar to opening a window in a stuffy space. Like when everyone applauded and you realized the emperor had been skulking around the newsroom for years without any clothing. Joe laughed and went on to another conspiracy idea while Megyn looked at the headlines and returned her attention to her microphone while Lemon attempted to regain his position with tweet storms and podcast teases because they didn't consider Don Lemon to be the main course. He was previously sent back to the kitchen as the side dish since he was overdone and underseasoned. Joe and Megyn were already analyzing more recent, fresher catastrophes while Lemon lingered in the digital abyss, clinging to his bloated sense of relevancy like a life raft constructed of repeated talking points. Lemon left behind neither scandal nor substance. For a generation yearning for clarity, it was static background noise. His decline was more of a fading than a crash. A fading of a brightness that was never truly bright in the first place. The hush that followed was ultimately the only sound louder than his departure.